Hello, I just wanted to share with you my experience of my Vipassana 10-day course the other week. So it was life-changing for me. First of all, I want to tell you what I was scared about before I went. I read the agenda for the week of 10 days, and I saw that it said we're going to be meditating for 10 hours a day for 10 days in absolute silence for the full 10 days. And my biggest fear about that was sitting still for 10 days, 10 hours a day, because it was said you weren't really allowed to do any exercise apart from you could go for a little short walk around the grounds. And I have had a back issue, a scoliosis, for at least 16 years, possibly longer than that. And that causes me discomfort. And I was really worried about having to sit still for that long, because it's when I sit still, say for example driving or sitting down at a desk, that my back feels the most uncomfortable. I get tension. I wouldn't call it pain, but a lot of muscle tension, discomfort, sort of like cramp. Get pins and needles down my legs and in my crotch, and yeah, it's just not something I enjoyed, so I was really worried about that. And that was my biggest fear. And when I meditate at home, or when I used to meditate at home, I would sit on a cushion with a blanket on that and another cushion on top of that, so I could be quite high up and kneel down. So I didn't like crossing my legs, because that would cause discomfort in my back. And I found this way of sitting up on lots of cushions avoided that discomfort. So when I arrived at the Vipassana, I tried to replicate that, and their cushions are different to mine. They're much thinner. So I piled 4 cushions on top of each other and a blanket on top of that, and tried to kneel. It still wasn't that comfortable, but it was, I thought, the best I could do. So we're meditating. For the first 3 days, we were encouraged to sit still, but we were allowed to move about. And I was moving about quite a lot. Whenever I felt uncomfortable, I would change position. I was trying to stay in the same position, but whenever things got painful, or not even painful, and I felt I couldn't cope with it anymore, I'd change position. Then we get to day 4, and they introduce 3 of the hour-long meditation sessions during the day are called strong determination hours, and that's when you're supposed to sit still. And they said, don't open your legs, open your hands, or open your eyes. But they didn't say anything about moving your back. And I asked about this, and the teacher said, yeah, you're allowed to, adjust your posture of your back. So anyway, the very first one, I sit down on my 4 cushions, kneeling to meditate, and I'm determined to not move my legs or my hands or my eyes. However, first of all, and the meditation that we're doing is scanning the body from head to toe, and in the first 3 days I developed a really heightened awareness of the sensations on my skin and in my body. And so by the time I got to day 4, I could really feel all the sensations in my body. So I'm doing this, and I notice that my left knee is starting to get uncomfortable, sort of halfway through the meditation. But I continue scanning up and down. And I also notice that there's in my shoulder a little tense knot, which is bothering me. Now with my knee, I wasn't moving that. I was just observing it, because we were told we weren't allowed to move our legs. But with my shoulder, I kept moving my position, moving my shoulder, and it would go away for a bit, but then it would come back. And by the end of that first hour, I didn't move, And the knee pain, it came and it got more intense and more intense and more intense, but then it disappeared before the end of the meditation. It eased off. But the shoulder thing that I kept moving around, it did keep easing when I moved it, but then it would come back and it was still there at the end of the hour. So I was like, this is what they were teaching us on the course, that actually if you just sit and observe the sensations, no matter what sort of sensations, if it's pleasant or unpleasant or anything, then they pass away if you just don't move and don't try and get rid of them. So I was like, this seems to be working. Maybe I'll try not moving my shoulder in the next one. So the next hour came and I didn't move my shoulder, and I observed this little tense spot which was still there. And I observed that it was moving around actually. It wasn't still, it wasn't stationary. And eventually, at some point during that hour, it was gone. I was like, wow, this stuff actually works. So then I got an idea. For some of the meditation sessions, we were allowed to go and meditate in our bedroom. So I had tried meditating in my bedroom, sitting on the bed, leaning up against the wall, but I kept falling asleep. So this time I thought, well, maybe I can meditate sitting on my bed, just cross-legged, just sort of not with a upright posture, because I can't do that with my back, but just sort of slouching, sitting cross-legged, and I'll just see what comes up. And again, I'm pretty sure my back will start getting uncomfortable, but I might just try sitting with it and see if that passes as well. Right, so I sat with it, and yeah, very soon, the bit where my back is worse, it's sort of mid-back, I have a muscle next to my spine which is really, 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 really tense, and has been like that for, like I say, 16 years. It's so tense and hard and big that like it's numb most of the time. I go for massages sometimes, and when they massage that, even if it's a deep tissue massage and they're pressing really, really hard, I'm normally like, yeah, I can't even feel that. And they really have to go at it for me to start feeling it. So, first of all, as has been the case for the first 4 days of this meditation course, it's numb at that point in my back. But sitting cross-legged on my bed, it starts to make sensation. I could feel it just tingling at first. So I keep scanning, and it gets more and more intense, and it actually felt like a deep tissue massage. Like, it got more and more intense, and yeah, it went from tingly to just tense, and then really, really, really tense. And it was all over my back, though. That surprised me. It wasn't just that one muscle. It was all up the right hand side of my spine, a little bit on the left hand side of my spine as well. I could feel all this tension, also down into my bum and hips and legs. I could feel tension and tingling, and up the right hand side of my back as well, into my shoulder, loads of heat and tingling and tension. It was like a tree. That's what it reminded me of, a big trunk up my spine, branches out and roots down to the bottom. And I sat with it for as long as I could, and then it got overwhelming. I took a break, went back to it, sat with it again. Kept doing that for the rest of the day. And I was thinking, wow, I mean, this might go, but it's going to take more than a day. It's going to take more than 10 days, I thought. This is enormous, and I've had it in my body for at least 16 years, so yeah, it's going to take a long time to get rid of it, right? No. By the last meditation session of that day, day 4, I sat down expecting it to come back up again, and it didn't. I didn't experience any of that, anything in my back. And I was like, this is crazy. And I sat through that meditation, just that hour long. That was one of the ones where we weren't allowed to move in the hall, expecting it to come up. No, I got a lot of tension in my leg and knee, really, really, really intense pain in my knee. But I was just so excited that I didn't have any tension in my back, that I was able to sit with that pain in my knee. And when I finished that hour, I was just, oh my goodness. I could hardly walk because my knee was, all my legs were kind of numb and my knee hadn't recovered from the pain. So I was trying to walk out of meditation hall and ended up having to crawl along the floor, and I kind of collapsed by the door. You know when your legs are dead, they just don't want to, you can't stand on them. So I kind of collapsed by the door of the meditation hall and just couldn't stop laughing to start with. And then the woman who was kind of the manager of the course came out and was like, oh, it's supposed to be silence, like come outside with me. And she took me outside so that I wouldn't be disturbing everyone else. And I was kind of laughing and crying and just, I could not believe it. I've been holding on to this pain and discomfort for 16 years, and it's caused me to injure myself, and that really is painful, and I have to take time off work. And I've been to loads of masseurs and physiotherapists and chiropractors and all sorts of therapists to try and fix it. All that time I've spent and money I've spent, and all I needed to do was just sit with it for a day without moving and just observe it. Amazing. And it's just changed my life. And so now when I drove up to Bedford last week, 2 hours there, 2.5 hours back. Before, if I was driving, after at least about half an hour, 45 minutes of driving, I would have a very uncomfortable back and I would take a break. I would take a break. This time, hardly any discomfort. I got one little twinge in the right hand side of my lower back, but again I observed it just like I did on the meditation course, and it passed away after about 10 minutes. And similarly, cycling, that used to cause me discomfort. I didn't even notice it. I was so used to it that I didn't sort of notice it. But now when I cycle, I notice that it's gone and it feels so much more free to cycle. And another thing I wanted to share was when I was sitting with that pain and discomfort, a memory came up from when I was at school, in secondary school, and I once had a back ache during lesson. And I went to the school nurse, and she was very compassionate and gave me a blanket and let me lie down in the sick room. And I think that lesson, I got to skip that lesson and possibly even the rest of the afternoon. And I definitely did that. That happened once or maybe even twice. And this is the bit I'd forgotten, is that I thought this would be really easy to fake if I ever wanted to get off a class I didn't want to go to. And I definitely faked it once, if not twice. And this memory came up, very fleeting of that. I could have easily just dismissed it. But I wonder if maybe that is the reason why I've been holding on to this pain, this back problem, for at least 16 years, probably longer. Because it gets me compassion and sympathy, and it gives me a good excuse to get out of doing things I don't want to do. So yeah, if you've got a scoliosis or any sort of back ache, pain, any sort of physical discomfort, I would really recommend do a Vipassana course. Just see what happens when you just sit with that discomfort. See if it passes away, because this has just changed my life. My scoliosis, I'm sure is still there. If you don't know what a scoliosis is, it's a curved spine. I'm sure my spine is still curved, and I still have, I can still feel that muscle in my back is more tense than the other muscle on the other side. So there is still stuff there, but I'm continuing doing the meditation. I'm trying to do 2 hours a day, and I can feel it's coming up again. And I was a bit disappointed when I could feel it coming up again, because I've been telling everyone, oh, my back is cured. No, I don't think my back is cured. I now have a new understanding of discomfort and pain, that I don't have to run away from it, and I can just sit with it, and eventually it will pass. I have been getting a little bit frustrated that this new discomfort hasn't been passing as quickly as I would like, but remembering that on this course I was meditating 10 hours a day, and now I'm only doing 2 or more likely 1 hour a day, so it's going to take way more days for this discomfort to pass. So yeah, anyway, I hope this helps you, and yeah, I really recommend going on a Vipassana course near you.